I grew 3 inches taller at 19. I'm going to show you the exact lab studies and biological glitches I used to make it happen. Look, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. Growth stops after a certain age. That's what every doctor, every forum, every TikTok science video will tell you, but I did it, and I'm going to show you exactly how. First off, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a personal trainer, I'm just a guy who was 5'7" and genuinely obsessed with fixing that, and it took me a full year testing everything I could find, and I went up 3 inches. Now, before we get into it, I need to warn you about something. See, most height content online is completely useless. It's either fake exercises with zero biological basis, or people telling you it's impossible. But if you're already past 18, stay with me. Because first thing nobody talks about today is that your body is secretly shorter than it should be. I know it sounds crazy, but gravity has been compressing your spine every single hour you've been awake. You see the discs between your vertebrae, those soft pads that sit between each bone. They get squeezed down throughout the day. Research proves it. It has been established that the average person loses between 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch of measurable height just from being upright and moving around. That height is just sitting there, locked in your spine, and most people never get it back. So that's where we start. Step 1. Hanging. Since gravity compresses your spine, hanging from a bar directly reverses that. So when you dead hang, those compressed discs can partially rehydrate and re-expand, and your spine returns closer to its actual resting length. It's not permanent bone growth, but it is a real, measurable height that most people are walking around without. If you do nothing else in this list, do this. 2 minutes a day, over a door frame pull-up bar you can get for a few dollars. The ROI on that is insane. 2. Sprinting. A 30-second all-out sprint is one of the most powerful triggers for growth hormone release that exists. A study published in the Journal of Sports Science found that a maximal 30-second sprint produced growth hormone levels more than 4 times higher than a shorter effort, and that elevation stayed in the bloodstream for up to 90 minutes post-sprint. To do this right, sprint 3 to 4 times a week, for 5 sets of 20 seconds. And here's the part people skip over, because it sounds obvious. You need to be going at your absolute maximum, not 80%. Not pretty fast, maximum. The HGH, that is the human growth hormone response from sprinting, is directly tied to intensity because your pituitary gland doesn't respond to comfortable. It responds to stress, the kind of stress that makes your legs feel like they're dissolving at the 15-second mark. That's the signal. That's what forces your endocrine system to flood your bloodstream with growth hormone. If you look cool while doing this, you're doing it wrong. You should look like you're running for your life. Think of your pituitary gland like a very selective piece of machinery that only switches on past a certain threshold. Half effort doesn't even register. But the moment you cross into that territory where your lungs are genuinely panicking and your form starts breaking down, that's when the door opens. You get a 400% spike in circulating HGH, and that elevation stays active for up to 90 minutes after the last rep. So those 5 sprints that take you under 3 minutes total, they're engineering a hormonal environment your body hasn't been in since puberty. Most people jog and wonder why nothing changes. Now you know exactly why. 3. Sleep. Here's something most people get completely wrong. You don't grow during exercise. You grow during sleep, specifically during deep non-REM sleep. That's when the pituitary gland releases the largest single pulse of growth hormone your body produces in a 24-hour period. National Institutes of Health published research shows this sleep-related pulse accounts for up to 70% of your total daily growth hormone output. So when you cut your sleep short, you cut that pulse. If you're staying on your phone until 2 a.m., you're not just tired the next day, you're actively shutting down your own growth window. Think about that. You're doing the sprints, you're hanging, you're eating right, and then you're dismantling all of it every night with 3 hours of doom scrolling. It compounds in the wrong direction fast. Get 8 hours, minimum, non-negotiable. 4. Sports. I can give at least 30 to 40% of my growth to playing basketball and volleyball consistently. And for a long time I thought it was just the jumping, the reaching, the constant movement. But there's actually a precise biological mechanism behind this. And once you understand it, you'll never look at a pickup game the same way again. It comes down to 2 principles. The first is Wolff's law. In the 1890s, a German surgeon named Julius Wolff observed that bone is a living adaptive tissue. It responds to the mechanical loads placed on it. When you land from a jump, especially a high jump, the kind basketball and volleyball demand constantly, the impact travels up through your skeletal structure and creates what scientists call microstress along the bone. No damage. Stress, controlled, repetitive loading stress. That stress is a signal. Your body reads it as, this skeleton needs to be stronger and denser here. So it begins depositing new bone mineral at exactly those stress sites. The second principle is the piezoelectric effect. This is where it gets genuinely strange. When bone tissue is physically compressed or bent under load, which is exactly what happens every time you land from a jump, it generates a small electrical charge, a literal electrical signal that travels through the bone matrix and triggers osteoblast activity. Osteoblasts are the cells responsible for building new bones. So your body isn't just responding to chemistry here, it's responding to electricity, generated by force, generated by you jumping and landing. Basketball and volleyball are almost perfectly engineered to trigger both effects repeatedly. Every landing is a dose. Every explosive push-off is a stimulus. Your skeleton is being told over and over that it needs to adapt. This is also why swimming, despite being excellent cardio, produces almost none of these bone adaptation effects. No impact, no piezoelectric charge, no Wolff's Law response. Water absorbs everything. Your skeleton floats through it completely unbothered, learning absolutely nothing. You want your bones to grow? They need a reason to. Give them impact. 5. The hidden posture unlock. This one is going to frustrate you. Not because it's complicated, because it's so simple and so ignored and it's been costing you real visible height every single day. Most people walking around right now are shorter than their skeleton actually allows. Not because of compression, because of how their bones are stacked. 2 postural problems are quietly stealing height from the vast majority of people alive right now. The first is anterior pelvic tilt, where the pelvis tips forward. The lower back collapses into an exaggerated curve, and the entire torso shifts downward and forward. The second is forward head posture, where the head drifts in front of the shoulders, typically from years of looking down at phones and laptops, which drags the whole vertical line of the body down with it. Neither of these are rare. Researchers at Middlesex University estimated that roughly 85% of men and 75% of women have some degree of anterior pelvic tilt. That's not a niche problem. That's almost everyone. Here's the fix, and I want you to pay attention because this is probably the fastest visible result on this entire list. A daily 30-second hip flexor stretch, specifically a deep kneeling lunge hold, directly counteracts the muscular pull causing the tilt. Pair that with chin tucks, where you draw the head straight back over the shoulders and you're attacking both problems at once. 2 minutes a day. That's the full-time investment. When I fixed my anterior pelvic tilt and forward head posture, I looked measurably taller in the mirror the same day. Not after a week. The same day. Same bones, same spine, completely different silhouette. It's the difference between a crooked column and a straight one. The material doesn't change, but the height does. Instantly. Most people are sitting on a free inch right now, and they've never once been told to go find it. That's genuinely criminal. But here is the scary part. You can do all the sprints and the hanging, but if you're missing this one specific activation key in your diet, you aren't just failing to grow. You might actually be damaging your arteries. 6. The hidden nutrition. Every height video on the internet says the same thing. Drink milk, get calcium, eat protein, and those things aren't wrong. But they're missing the piece that actually makes any of it work, which is what gets the calcium into the bone in the first place. Because calcium doesn't self-navigate into your skeletal tissue. It needs a specific protein to bind it there. That protein is called osteocalcin, and osteocalcin only activates in the presence of vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form, which is the most bioavailable version for humans. Without sufficient K2, the calcium you're consuming circulates in your bloodstream, never gets deposited into bone properly, and in some cases, ends up calcifying soft tissue instead. Your arteries, your cartilage, exactly where you don't want it. A 2013 study in Osteoporosis International found that K2 supplementation significantly improved bone mineral density over 3 years, specifically through enhanced osteocalcin activation. Your bones weren't failing because of a calcium deficiency. They were failing because the activation key was missing. The full stack is 3 things working together. Calcium from food first. Dark leafy greens like kale and bok choy are actually higher in bioavailable calcium than dairy, and they don't come with the downsides. K2 in MK7 form, around 100 to 200 micrograms daily, and vitamin D3, because without D3, calcium absorption from the gut is compromised before K2 even gets a chance to do anything. Each one is essentially useless without the other 2. Most people just take calcium alone and wonder why nothing changes. It's like Filling a car with fuel but forgetting that the fuel line is blocked. The input is there. The delivery system isn't. And one more thing, zinc. Specifically because zinc is directly involved in growth hormone synthesis, and zinc deficiency measurably suppresses GH secretion, according to research out of the University of Rochester. Athletes are especially vulnerable because you sweat zinc out faster than the average person replenishes it. Oysters, pumpkin seeds, red meat. Not exciting. But if you're sprinting hard, sleeping 8 hours, and your zinc is depleted, you're leaving real hormonal output on the table. This is the nutrition framework that actually supports growth. Not just the macros, the full chain. From absorption to deposition to hormonal output. Every link has to hold, or the whole thing leaks. 6 mechanisms. All of them biological. All of them backed by research you can look up right now. None of them require you to be a teenager, buy a program, or believe in anything on faith. Here's what I want you to actually take from this. The reason most people never see results isn't because growing taller after 18 is impossible. It's because they're randomly doing 1 or 2 things on this list while unknowingly sabotaging everything else. Sleeping 5 hours, skipping the sprints, taking calcium with no K2, jogging instead of sprinting, doing cardio in a pool. Every single one of those choices is quietly closing a door. When you run the full protocol, hanging, maximal sprints, protected sleep, high-impact sport, posture correction, and the right nutrient stack, you're not just doing 6 separate things. You're building one coherent system where each piece amplifies the others. The sprint spike HGH. The sleep delivers it. The nutrition deploys it into bone. The posture reveals what's already there. The sport reinforces the skeleton adapting to all of it. I was 5'7" at 19. I ran this for 12 months. I stopped measuring at 5'10". Now you have everything I had. The rest is just execution. Send this to the one person you know who refuses to accept their default height. Let's see what happens in 12 months.